Welcome to Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. Well, the weather just keeps getting better. Has spring sprung? Well, it's March. You get nice stretches of weather like this time of year. That's one good thing about this time of year. As we get into March and April, you can have some good weather. And as we know, lots of bad weather, but at least we're in that good weather phase right now. We do have the small Colorado and Kansas storm remaining on track. It is going to brush the extreme southern counties of Wyoming. It's not a big storm, but it is going to bring some needed moisture to some of you, especially in some of the parched eastern Colorado plains and plains of western Kansas. There's another weak system for the weekend, but we don't expect it to do much, mainly mountain snow showers. So that means through the weekend, it is going to be mild and spring-like. Next week's weather, we still expect it to get busy, but the details are really tough to sort out right now in timing and intensity. Hopefully, as we get into tomorrow and Friday, we can clear up next week for you. But right now, what we can tell you what the trend will be. The trend will be for some colder weather, some increased chances for some winter weather at times coming back on into the western United States, but we've got to figure out the details. But next week will bring changes. Today, here we are, the upper level pattern showing a low just off the Southern California coast. This will be the weather maker for tomorrow. We got a big trough up into the Gulf of Alaska. And as we mentioned earlier in the week, we're in that bowling ball time of year where lows will kind of go along the edge of the jet stream, kind of not completely detached, but not so much of a strong jet stream wind that you have during the course of midwinter. And it tends to weaken, the jet stream does, as the seasons begin to change. So you'll have these lows that kind of break off from the main flow. As we go into tomorrow, the low will drift northeastward towards Colorado. This is the latest radar shot out of Southern California. So you can see Los Angeles, San Diego, going to get some needed rain out of this system. It's not a big system, but all of that is going to be heading northeast over the next 24 to 48 hours. And by tomorrow at noon, this is where the upper level low is. It really moves rather quickly from its current position to there. As we mentioned, it's coming underneath a high pressure ridge, so there's no door open to Canada. So this is going to be more wet than it will be white as it comes through, but it's got enough moisture and instability with it. It might even produce a couple of thunderstorms in parts of eastern Colorado tomorrow. Wouldn't be surprised if that happens. As it slides south and east, by Friday morning, it's quickly out of the area, headed southeast towards Oklahoma, then will swing along the southeastern United States. Notice there's a big shot of some really cold air for March heading into New England and heading into the northeastern United States, and a cold northwest flow heading into the Great Lakes. So while we're enjoying some warmer spring-like weather, well, winter going down fighting up here in the northeastern United States. Now, some of you may be looking off to the northwest, up to the Aleutians here, and see some gray and some dark blue colors up there. Yeah, there's a little big, let's call it a big area of some really cold air up on the north slope of Alaska. This will be generating more waves and storms. So this is why next week's weather is going to be active. And then hanging back off the coast of British Columbia by Friday is another little area of low pressure. Part of that's going to swing off and come eastward over the weekend. Now, taking a look at the precipitation forecast, this is the forecast through Friday afternoon with this little low coming up out of Southern California. You can see the path. As it comes on through, it goes just like this before turning south and east. Extreme southern Wyoming may be clipped by some rain and snow shower activity on Thursday. However, the rest of the region up here stays mostly dry. Looks like the big winner is going to be west central areas of Kansas, picking up some nice rain. I don't think it's going to be as wet as it's showing here. The model showing is maybe as much of an inch of rain, maybe half of that. That would be great news all the way around. And you can see some needed rain in eastern Colorado. There's also a little pocket of heavier moisture around the Denver area, and then the southwest mountains of Colorado. Going to see a nice wet spring snow there. And look at the Wasatch. The Wasatch going to get a little bit of the moisture as well, and even in the mountains of Arizona and northern New Mexico. As we go forward with the snowfall, you can see there's really nothing really heavy with the snow. The heavier snow stays up in the mountains. A little bit of snow on the plains, but due to the warmth we have now, and the fact that the storm doesn't have any cold air with it, it actually is not going to be a big snow producer on the plains, just kind of a little bit of a turnover at the end as it gets cold enough late tomorrow and tomorrow night for a changeover from rain to snow. Here's the next system coming in. This is for Saturday afternoon. We've got a little wave. It's not much, but it's going to come through just like this. This will produce some snow into the mountains of Wyoming and Montana and Idaho, maybe northern Colorado, but we expect very little activity on the plains. And then by early next week, a warm southwest wind flow comes in ahead of the next low coming in off the west coast. So there's going to be a mild trend that will continue through the weekend and probably through Tuesday, folks, of next week. It will be spring-like, but this area of low pressure here begins to swing in, followed by another one behind it. That's why next week's weather is going to get more busy. And you can see all the blue up there. There's some cold air to tap into. A quick update on sea surface temperature conditions. I want to show you a little something interesting here with the sea surface temperature pattern. Here's the area of colder temperatures. We've all been focusing in on the equator region, and that's exactly where you need to focus. That's where the biggest impacts are. But this right here is a growth of sea surface temperatures right here in this area here, where sea surface temperatures have really cooled quite a bit since December. You know, this area right here was actually a little above average a month ago. The whole Pacific Basin in this area here has trended cooler. We've got this hot spot east of New Zealand that continues. I won't call it a hot spot, but rather a warmer area over likely that volcanic action under seawater right now. But up here, those sea surface temperatures have dropped. This is something we saw in 2011 and 2012. Bottom line is La Nina not ending anytime soon. And if we were to go back and graph it near that equator region, what I want to highlight here is where the western United States really started to turn dry. The sea surface temperatures in late April into May, that's when La Nina really got going, and you can see the big drop in sea surface temperatures that happened late summer and into early fall. Now, this next graph here represents the heat content of the ocean. Between 100 degrees west and 100 degrees 80 latitude along the equatorial regions of the Pacific. And you can see all the way up through April of 2020, those sea surface temperatures were a little warmer than average. And 2019 was a really wet year for the United States, especially the central and western United States. But when did it turn dry? As I showed you in that last graph, when the heat content of the oceans drop, namely the Pacific, for the central and western United States, you just have less water going into the air. There's less water going into the air when the sea surface temperatures are colder, and there's less water vapor in the air to produce rain and snow. Now, you may be looking at this graph and say, wow, well, look what happened last summer. The sea surface temperatures went up. Well, you expect that. This is the peak heating of the sun at the equator. So it tends to wash out the sea surface temperature anomalies. That's why it's always tricky. El Nino and La Ninas in the summer kind of go and hide for a little bit. But as you can see, as we left summer and went into fall, and we all know how dry the fall was last year, you can see that big corresponding drop in those sea surface temperatures. Then we had all those problems with wildfires. It was a dry fall. It was a warm fall. So we had a lot going on there. And as you can see, there has been a recent upward trend in the heat content slightly since late February here into early March, but it's got a long way to go before it gets up to this line, and it will likely not have enough momentum to get there. Although do expect something like this again to happen this summer here as we get into July and August. Thanks for listening and watching the Day Weather Podcast. Have yourself a good Wednesday.